Welcome back everyone, and in this video we will talk about story map, prioritization, MVP and estimation. So let's get started with story map. A story map on a very high level is a visual representation of the entire product backlog that you have. You can also consider it as a complete vision or a complete picture of where you want to be. And the way it helps is it gives that picture to everyone involved in your product development. So it is not that only some people will have the only some people will know what is that you're trying to do. Everyone looks at it the same way, and it there's a reason you call it a map, right? It shows you a direction. So traditionally, if you see little on the right, please. Uh, Traditionally, if you see, there is this concept of a flat backlog, and the most common used tool is a spreadsheet where you take requirements, you put it, or maybe even for stories, you put it in an Excel sheet one by, but you do not know if there is a dependency. In this way, you do not know necessarily there is a sequence to it. You don't even know if there are multiple ways of doing the same thing. So and if you do things like in the example where you try to sort out things on must haves or could haves, in that way you will lose the big picture of what your entire user interaction looks like. So if you compare this with a visual representation on the next image, this is what a story map could look like. And you typically have users or user goals at the top, the different activities they could do, and the different tasks or actions that can help them to do each of this activity. So in here, if you see, you will always be able to see the complete picture of where you want to go. Everyone will be able to look at it together. If you find dependencies, you will be able to pick them up. So for example, you were trying to build a food delivery app, and you are and if you're trying to write journeys, you may miss out on the delivery aspect of it or the delivery partner aspect of it. So such things, when you start writing in sequence on a visual representation, it helps you identify that dependency. Now, how will you build a product? How will you build a story map? Is you take all your user stories or epics or features, you arrange them. You take all your user journeys, you arrange them. We can refer to the steps on the top, the 6 steps on the top. So you take all your user goals, you arrange them in the sequence of their occurrence. Then next you write down activities that each of these users would do to achieve their goal. And below the activities, you start writing the alternatives that your users can do to be able to complete that activity. When this is done, you want to check if there are any dependencies that you've missed, and you can also include them there in your story map then. And again, most importantly, story map needs to be from user's perspective. So coming back to our example of Uber or a cab service, we've tried to build a high level story map, which Rucha are showing us. So this is how it could look like. There could be variations to it, but on a high level, this is where it looks like. So it tells me that from accessing the system up to giving a feedback, I have a sequence. There are different users and user goals, and at the bottom I can see that there are multiple options or multiple ways this journey could be met. Now if you can go back up, please. So I have two pictures here. One of them is showing it on a wall. So you can have an entire wall to do this. You can have a big size table to do it. You can also do it on a floor, or the latest collaboration tools have that functionality of letting you build story maps, and then they will give you some additional features when you can do taggings and filterings and stuff like that. So it doesn't matter how you build it, but it is very highly recommended to have a story map because it gives you a visual representation of all your backlog items. Okay, so next we look at what is an MVP, and we all must have heard this term earlier. It is a minimum viable product. So I think with Agile, MVP is one of the most commonly heard terms, or it is the most common things that you would hear, but it could also be one of the most commonly confused term or most commonly argued about term. But MVP in the very essence or in the very goal is nothing but trying to get actual feedback from early users of your product with the least effort. It is your attempt to validate with actual user feedback if your problem statement has a need, and if the customers are interested to use it. So it's not only just a single piece of working functionality of your product. It has to have that little bit of value. It has to have that attraction for early adopters. It has to have a usability, and also you can say user experience or emotional design. So it has to have a bit of everything. It cannot just be the working functionality. And as in when we are evolving with more and more concepts of agile, we are listening to minimum marketable product, minimum awesome product, minimum lovable product, and there are a lot of things. But depending on what you are building in the market that you are building, and what is that you want to measure for your product, your MVP could change, but the essence would remain same. You're trying to put least of effort to get it tested as quickly as possible from your actual users and get real feedback to make, and to make use of it. So if you look at this image, and Rucha, if you can zoom in a little please. I am very sure when you search MVP, this is one of the most commonly available images. So if you see in the first section, this is not how you build a MVP, right? You cannot have, if you give a tire to a user, they're not going to be able to do anything out of it. The second and the third part of the image, I think this will be a very confusing and also argument provoking comparison. But again, what is important is what is your goal? Do you want to give your users something to commute from one place to another? Is that your goal? Or do you want them to have uh, a commuting option which can protect them in rains? So if you want to help them to travel in rain, then the second section of the image is not how you would build an MVP, because that doesn't happen in the first part itself. But if you just want them to commute, then maybe you can consider the second one as also an MVP. So depending on how you look at it, or what is that you are trying to build, it really will define your MVP. And again, if you were to just take a very high level of the flow that you would consider for an MVP, if you can scroll down a little to the bottom and left, please. Okay. So in very layman terms, right, or very simple, you take your product to the market, you gather their feedback, you analyze their feedback, and out of the analysis that you do, you will get a certain actions or some of the actions. Either you would know that they loved it, it's ready to be offered to more people, you keep building it, also offering it to more people. Or maybe they liked it, but you're still not sure, you need more experiment. Maybe they did not like it, so you want to reconsider if your problem has a need. And in some cases you will get direct actionable items which you want to use as feedback and make changes. Now we all know that there are multiple examples for MVP, but few examples that are very popular and have been picked up by many case studies are Airbnb, then there's Uber, then there's Dropbox. So Airbnb's MVP was just a website where they advertised that you could have something where you could, rent or use as a boarding place. Uber had a simple page which said that you can have an on-demand car either via phone or SMS, and maybe they also showed a little about what kind of cars they have and how reviews is important. And again, Dropbox, a very well known example of MVP, was just a YouTube video of what the product does. That's how they started building or promoting Dropbox. So if you want to remember, you can also look at MVP by trying to know what is not an MVP. So MVP is not just a wish list for your product owner or product manager. It is not MVP if it is not minimum, if it does not focus on hypothesis validation or getting feedback of your problem statement. It is not MVP. And if it is something which cannot be given out to users to interact with, to use it in real world, maybe it's not an MVP.
Thank you, Ankit. I think that really nicely sets context for what I want to explain next, which is prioritization. Uh, let's have a look at the backlog or the story map, rather, which Ankit was mentioning. So, if you look at it, and I'm going to zoom in a bit more, we've completed like one entire journey where a passenger has a particular goal to book a ride. The driver has the goal to ride the passenger, and then support has the goal to support any queries that come to the platform, be it from the driver or the passenger. So what we've done is, and again, this is not complete, this is just the starting of a story map. There could be more things to it, but just for the purpose of example, we've kept it simple. And then these are the activities, and we've had a look at it earlier, right from accessing to taking a ride, uh, to the driver accepting the request and driving the passenger till the time feedback is collected. And then the smaller blue ones that you see are the multiple ways through which an activity could be completed. Now you can imagine these are like so many tickets, and for like a proper map, it could run into hundreds of post-its like these. If we have so much to do, how are we going to decide what to do first? And that's where you need to take a prioritization call. Now, prioritization is not new to Agile. We've always been told about prioritization, right? In whatever world we are, even in our daily lives, like if you have a long list to work on, you pick something which is like important and urgent to be done, right? So that's your metric for prioritization. Likewise, traditionally, we have used a lot of uh, ways through which we can prioritize, right? So, again, how does it help? It helps you to maximize the work value of work that you have in the minimum amount of time. And the art of maximizing work not done and reducing waste, we'll talk about that later once we've understood it with examples. So if I have to look at a very layman or basic way, if I don't understand like a lot of terms, if I have a list of work to be done, how am I going to do it, even if it's in my personal time? I might gauge it at the risk that I have versus the value that I gain. And then I'll decide, hey, these are the things that I need to do first. This could go second. Possibly these are the things I can just not do, or let just someone else do it, delegate. Likewise, I could also do it basis on time that I have at hand and the value it gives me. So this is also one way that I could do it. So one of the most common ways all of us know, even from waterfall days, is Moscow. So Moscow is again kind of, and not really like an acronym, but you can see it's like things that you must do, which is essential, basic. You can't exist without it. Most vital things to do. Should is say it gives a lot of value at a very small cost, and these are the low hanging fruits that you will consider first after the must haves have been done. Could have is add a little value with at a bigger cost. Could be nice to have or delight us. And then won't is, a lot of people also call this as would, wouldn't, like would do. Again, these are things that you will consider or you may not even consider after you've looked at, but you will take a call only after you've looked at must, should, could, and you can definitely park this. So this adds very little value. So this is Moscow. Likewise, you have Kano. You could do a prioritization by just giving dot votes to people. Say if there are 10 things to decide on, you give like 7 votes or 5 votes each to people, and then based on top voting, uh, you consider that feature. Likewise, you could do a money game or a buyer feature, like you give 100 coins, and then you let people or stakeholders decide on what feature do you want to put your money. There's also a very, very fun way to play this as rock, paper, scissors, where you go from 0 to 5. 0 is a rock you can do, 2 is can do but could be off, uh, can come later, and then paper is like just refine further. So the reason you might want to do again this is because you want to know what are the things that you go ahead with first. Uh, Again, a very important thing is once you decide this in a go, it's not set in stone. For example, in dot voting, say someone says a particular feature gets 3 votes and another feature gets say like 5 votes. What is important here is you ensure a conversation happens. It might happen that I think something is a must have and Ankit thinks it is a should have. Then once we have arranged everything, we have a conversation. So either you convince or you get convinced, but that's based on the reasoning. So I may be convinced by what Ankit says, but that's only after I've heard his perspective. So getting what an exercise like this ensures is you hear everyone's perspective and you have a more holistic view of things, and then you're better able to gauge it. Okay, so in our case, in our example, let's look at the very simple must haves, or if we look at it, say do first kind of examples. I've not used any like technique per se to just make it simple, but with our example, what I've just tried to do is if I have to do say Moscow, I can just form 4 quadrants like these, and then just drag and drop what is a must have for me, drag and drop what is a should, could, won't. This is one way of doing it. Another way, based on what tool you're using, is you could just add tags like these to the existing card. Sorry if I'm moving this a lot. So you could just add tags like these. Is this readable, Ankit?
The tags, probably not because of the colors they're using, but now they are. Now they are. We're good.
Okay, cool. So basically, I can just add to the existing ticket. So if I think this website, having a website is a must have, then I can just say must, and that will appear here. So multiple ways of doing it. For simplicity, what I have done here is, and this is the MVP Ankit was talking about. What I've literally done is, I've drawn a line, I've replicated the existing backlog that we have, and I identified for me to test. So imagine a concept like Uber does not exist in market. Okay, this is the first time you're trying something. You're living in a world where you either have a public transport or you have the regular taxis where you are at a point you just stop the taxi by signaling it and it stops for you. So you are in a world where you don't have taxis on demand and you want to test if this concept flies, and you're not even sure, so you're not going to work on building like a very fancy thing and then take it out to the market by spending a year where you might uh, realize that someone else has already worked on it and has released it to the market, or you realize that hey, a concept like this would not fly at all. So you want to test this first, which is what the intention of an MVP is. So the basic thing that I've done is the user accesses by just giving a call, and a request to a ride is also taken through a call. And taking ride, if you look at it, you had features like sharing ride details, if you remember, because I wanted to feel safe. I wanted to share my right details with someone. But if I'm testing the concept out, I need not take that. So no, I don't have like any activity related to for the activity taking, right? I don't have any actions. Then I can simply pay in cash. The driver can also accept requests via phone calls, and this can go long. Feedback, I can avoid taking feedback, or I could just provide a physical form. Invoice, I can just give it on paper, or I can just take it on demand. Like only if you need an invoice, I can create, like the driver itself gives like a old day receipt, a paper receipt. So again, this is my MVP. If Ankit tomorrow wants to build this and he's the owner or he's the product owner for this, he might want to incorporate a few more things. Say, like for example, he might want to also put up a kiosks at the airport to see, if people are happy with a concept like this. So definition varies based on what your intention is, and how quickly you want to release, what value you might want to take, and if you also want to add any delighters or not.
So, um, sorry to
No,
cut
go
in,
ahead,
Rucha.
Ankit.
So this will also depend, I mean, do you think it will also depend a lot on what we've talked in the initial slides of what your value proposition is, what is the value that you are trying to give out, and defining things like that? Because what you said is a very good example. If Uber exists, something like Uber exists, then your MVP is different. If nothing like Uber exists, then your MVP is different again. So based on what you're trying to do as value proposition or a key differentiator or value bringing point, your MVP could totally depend on that. What do you
A-
think about it?
no, absolutely. I mean, if you want to add delighters, whether you want to keep it basic, all depends on what a customer is already getting,
So
right?
if I can take another example real quick, if you are coming up with a new hotel, and if you just keep the room with no breakfast, uh, no breakfast, no Wi-Fi, no AC, no room service, nothing. Just a plain room that you're going out to keep a hotel. Is that an MVP? We don't know, right? It could be MVP, it could not be MVP based on where are you testing it, what market is it available for, who are your potential customers.
Absolutely agree. Like what is basic for someone might be like, or rather, what is a delighter for someone might be a complete must have for some other person. So it all depends. And the definition also changes over a period of time, by the way. Like, for example, having a smartphone or having a particular feature in a smartphone was a delighter a few years back. Over a period of time, after usage, it becomes like a must have, right? So that definition also changes over a period of time.
Right, and we have a few terms written there. I will go through it real quick. So, backbone or walking skeleton or shortest path, all these are nothing but this could be very all of them have the same meaning. How quickly can you complete your user journey or the basic things that you want? That's why we call it a walking skeleton. There's no skin, there are no clothes. From one point to another, how fast do you want to, what is the simplest way of reaching there, still giving out the entire functionality? You just don't go the halfway, you go the entire journey. So yeah, sorry Rucha, you were trying to
Yeah, I
do
was just
something.
trying
Yeah.
to summarize what you were saying. So it's like getting from A to B in the simplest possible way. If I have to relate it in our example, like there could be a lot of things adding bells and whistles, but I just want to test my concept first. Once I know it might fly, I might go with adding a few more things, like say, and I'm not looking at the functionalities what they are, but I might just say I will add these many things to the next feature release that I want. So this automatically becomes my next release. And then based on adding a few more things based on the feedback that we are collecting, this might become the next thing. So this is how you can divide your releases. And it could be a possibility that, I don't need, and don't go by the stickies right now. I'm just trying to help you understand the concept. It might be a possibility that what you had planned for later, you might not even need to do it. So if I have to give you an example, there was a request for being able to filter emails. Okay. We first released, say, filter by date. And then we first release, and there was a long list that we'd like filter by date, name, filter by what are the other things that could come, filter by attachment or filter by subject line. And it was a very, very long list. So we prioritized it and we said that, hey, let's go just by filter by date for now. Okay, so we did that. And next release that we made was, say, filter by name. And then there were a lot of things, and later saying filter by attachment, filter by subject line. But the client came to us and said that, you know what, whatever we have is enough. I think that serves the purpose, and we need not dive deep into, the other examples of, say, other features as well. So that's essentially, you're not putting in a lot of thought to something which has not yet come. You are putting in more thought and detailing a lot more things that you want to do immediately, because you never know, whatever you were planning to do later, you might not even want to do, because the value that you wanted to get out of it, or the goal that you wanted to achieve, you've already reached and it is good enough. So that's nice. That's essentially what we call is reducing waste, or the art of
Work not done.
maximizing work not done. So that is what prioritization helps us with. Yeah. So that's prioritization. Coming back to the next concept that we want to cover, estimates. So let's understand estimates with a very quick example. If I ask you, how big is a strawberry? What, how might you answer that question?
Very big, or very, very, very big if I am an ant.
Okay. So again, what you did was you related it to something, right? But a lot of times, if I just ask this question to someone, it might become difficult to say, hey, so you might have questions like, what is the unit, right? Or is it like in centimeters? Is it like in grams? So that's how human mind works. We like to relate it to someone. That's essentially called as relative estimation. So if tomorrow I say strawberry, what I might think is, okay, strawberry is small in relation to an apple, but it is big in relation to a blueberry, right? So, and again, if I ask you how big is a tender coconut, you might say, hey, it's bigger than a strawberry, much bigger than a strawberry, considerably bigger than an apple. So that's how human mind works. We like to relate things rather than going for absolutes. And that's the whole purpose of estimation. So it's not set in stone. That's the most important thing to understand. It's a plan. Uh, it's something that you think is the best based on whatever information that you have. And you should not definitely go by it saying that it is set in stone. So when you look at estimations, and the reason we brought this topic up, you want to build Uber. Okay. The first question your stakeholders, your sponsors, everyone will have is, okay, this looks good. By when would you deliver it? Right? That's the basic question everyone has when you think of an idea, or when you think of some awesome concept which does not exist in the market. So to give that answer, what you need is to estimate it roughly. And to do that, what you can do is you can use multiple techniques like, say, t-shirt sizing or planning poker, through which you say whether it is a small thing to do, or whether it's a big thing to do, or whether it's like of medium size. Now, how do you look at when is it that you'll be able to deliver? Ankit will talk about that in the next video. But a prerequisite for that is estimations. And there are multiple ways of doing it. So you could do it through t-shirt sizing, as I said. The most important thing is, and you do this on a story level, or you do this on a product backlog item level. So here I'm considering a story. So what is the most important thing? If you've not done this before, you set up a baseline first. And a team might struggle setting up a baseline. So for example, say riding from destination A, or say an online payment option is story size medium. So that is what you've set your baseline to. So if a next story comes, you will have a read and you will say, is it simple or is it complex considered to the online payment option? And now relation or relativity becomes easy. Setting that baseline is the difficult bit. And you do this, how do you leverage it later? We'll have a look at that. The most common used technique also for it is planning poker, wherein you have cards and you need to maintain a poker face. And each of these cards, you have a Fibonacci series sequence, which is like 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. Why we use Fibonacci series instead of the normal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Because it takes into account the complexity in terms of estimating. So if things are too close, it becomes very difficult for a human brain to gauge. So if I just say 5 and 6, difference between 5 and 6, it might be a bit difficult. But in Fibonacci series, you'll see there's like almost 50% or higher difference in these numbers. At least 50%, I would say. Okay. So planning poker, a simple way to play it is you have a story up and then everyone has their own cards. You discuss the story as a team, and then you have a poker face and you say on the count of 3, let's say how big or small it is. Everyone displays their cards. If cards are similar, great, but which is very rare. If I have to be honest, there usually are differences which are good. So you pick a person who's given the lowest number and you pick a person who's given the highest number, let them discuss. Again, it's a matter of convinced or get convinced. Okay. What is important is you ensure discussions happen and you hear someone else's perspective as well, and you build a holistic opinion about things. And you repeat it till you get a consistency, or you just say you go up to round 2 and round 3, and then you have some rules set for yourselves that, even after round 3, you'll go with the one that is highest. Again, my suggestion is not spending a lot of time doing it. Be quick, do what comes to you. It's better to fail in your plans rather than to plan so exhaustively that you don't start implementing or you don't start working on anything. Yeah. So quick steps for this: establish a baseline, score, discuss, confirm. Why do we need it? Because we'll see if you want to uh, tell how much work we'll be able to do in X amount of time, then we need to have it estimated, which Ankit will cover in the next video, which is related to release planning in terms of identifying how much you'll be able to deliver or in how much time you'll be able to deliver. So that's pretty much from us on this one. Keep watching and see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.